Hey everyone, we've got a big update for the Poison Pathfinder build for you here today. This build is absolutely demolishing bosses, it was insanely cheap to get rolling, we're talking less than a divine on day 2 budget to blast tier 15s. And the comments section thought Poison Pathfinder was going to be expensive because other content creators were also playing it. Nope, exact opposite. It's also surprisingly tanky for day 2 gear. Not actually tanky of course, but we will wind up adding at least another 2000 energy shield before this is all finished, the build's all fleshed out, but still not bad for operating on a micro budget. So before we jump into it, help us out with a bit of busy work courtesy of YouTube. Like, subscribe, and hype the video if you're on mobile. These all tell YouTube to show our content to more people, which helps us keep doing this. So with that being said, we have made some changes to the build. Most of the footage that we've shown thus far has been with everything on 5 links. That is what we were at. That was where the build was at when we made the whole push up to tier 15s. All of this spinning and like getting 6 links on our 3 main skills, getting Rigwald's Ferocity, getting our Akali's Lust. These are valuable gems to have, whatever they're called, lineage supports. Like they're really, really good, but we made the transition up to tier 15s with a Sliver Tongue and a Dream and like, I don't know, 100 chaos or 100 exalts worth of currency actually invested into the build. A lot of the gear was just straight up solo self-found. This quiver from Acts is like still working. Obviously, we've moved on from the Sliver Tongue. We'll kind of talk a little bit more about gear going forward, but while you're still running Sliver Tongue, you have several gem options available since you won't need to use Fork. And really the best one to use is Heft. Once you have Rizlatha's Coil, it stacks very nicely with Rizlatha's Coil to give you this massive increase to your more maximum damage, Heft being 30% more maximum physical hit damage, and that just stacks really well with Rizlatha's Coil. Admixture is another option as well if you haven't gotten a Rizlatha's Coil yet. Admixture will give you 20% more magnitude of bleeding against poison enemies, poison against bleeding enemies. Everything you shoot with Poison Burst Arrow is going to have bleed and poison on it because it poisons, and you have bleed 3 in there. So that works really well. Qualitying all of these up is super important. A pretty common question is like whether you should upgrade Toxic Growth or Poison Burst Arrow first. Toxic Growth is the better option because it helps with your single target damage, and Poison Burst Arrow is really just more about clear. So Akali's Lust is a super valuable gem to throw on a Toxic Growth. It did get a buff this patch as well. It's 40% more damage now, which is completely insane. And it's really easy to get that full max value. All you have to do is have 5 poisons on the enemy, and you're usually going to have a standard amount as 8, right? So as for the Rigwald's Ferocity that's on Poison Burst Arrow, this is critical that you have this set up in your weapon set 2, and this does mean you have to, like, lock your weapon, which is pretty easy to do. You just right click in the inventory, but you lock your weapon and quiver to weapon set 2, and then you have to set your tree up so that all of your poison nodes are allocated on weapon set 2. That's the green lines or weapon set 2, and then with your main hand, your whatever weapon set 1, you can do a bunch of shock effect and use Stormcaller Arrow along with Shock, Lasting Shock, Overcharge, and Commiserate. All 4 of those jewels work very nicely together. Overshock is really, really good. It gives you a massive increase to magnitude of shock, but it also reflects the shock back to you, which is very bad. Commiserate makes it so that that shock that gets reflected to you gets cleared, and now it applies a much larger shock on top of that. So these synergize brilliantly, but you do need to run both of them, or else you're going to be kind of rocking with like a 70% shock on yourself, which is terrible for bossing. And that's really all that Stormcaller Arrow is for. It's just for bossing. If you're still using Sliver Tongue, then you probably just want to get like a half decent physical damage and flat lightning bow, and use that in your weapon set 1, and only lock your quiver between the 2 sets. Use the Sliver Tongue for weapon set 2 to clear everything, and then use the physical damage bow with some lightning damage just to make Stormcaller hit and actually do enough damage to shock bosses. Then a thing that we're doing that's way out there is we're using Bloodhound's Mark now, and the reason for this is super simple. Voltaic Mark got nerfed super hard this league to not work with shock at all. It now works with like Electrocute, so it's basically is dead. Sniper's Mark gets consumed whenever you crit. That's super annoying. Bloodhound's Mark really only gives you one important thing, and that's Mark for Death. That makes when you do physical damage to enemies, they get their armor broken. You can break enemy armor very, very, very quickly by blasting them with toxic growth and gas arrow, so this is only something you use on bosses. But then you also get some other benefits as well. You get 5% like life and mana leech on those bosses out of Mark of Siphoning. This can maybe help if you're not able to get mana leech somewhere, or, I mean, really just even if you do have it, having more isn't bad. And then you can run like efficiency for less cost. One extra little bit of funkiness with Bloodhound's Mark is that if the target has blood loss, then the mark's duration will not tick at all. Like standard duration here is 8 seconds, but it'll just not tick off at all. And so all you have to do to get blood loss on an enemy is just apply any bleed to them once, ever. So you can just shoot a poison burst arrow at them, apply that bleed once, and then Bloodhound's Mark is just going to permanently be on the boss for the whole fight, which is usually only like 5 or 10 seconds, if we're being real. Then everything else is pretty much sticking as it was. Herald of Plague, I probably could stand to upgrade, but it's doing fine. Herald of Blood is coming along nicely. You don't have to level this up super far, but like the more you level it up, the more base damage it'll do. We put Bleed and Poison and Bursting Plague and Admixture on it just so it does as much damage as possible to help with clearing. Herald of Plague is really just about Chaos Mastery. We're using Clarity 1 for a little bit more mana regen. You could maybe use Cannibalism 1 for like 2% more life on kill instead, depending on your spirit. And then Wind Dancer, Maim, Blind are pretty standard on Wind Dancer. Poison 3 and Bleed 3 are also good. And then Ghost Dance with Compressed Duration is working really well, and that is kind of like a critical component of the build's defenses is having a good amount of life and of energy shield. You know, we're doing hybrid defense, having Wind Dancer and Ghost Dance, also having evasion in there. Like, it's not a crazy amount, like 7,500 at the current moment, but those Ghost Shrouds that come from Ghost Dance do help a lot. All right, so this is what the tree looks like at the present moment. We have got all of our weapon set points allocated as expected, as standard, and we are taking advantage of all the crit nodes at the current moment. This is working really well. Like, base crit for bows is bad, and the bow that I'm currently using doesn't have any base crit on it, unfortunately, like any increase to crit chance. So that's like a potential big upgrade on probably just on the crafting of the next bow. But if this is already working, like there is some potential to maybe come down here and play around with things like fast acting toxins and wasting, but maybe we don't need to do that. We'll kind of have to see. The keystone that was over here that we're using from nothing and like playing around this area here is gone, so taking like all of these very quickly, very like cheaply is probably not on the table anymore. Not a huge problem. We could still use I don't remember the name of the unique jewel, but like a unique jewel over here to still like take advantage of a lot of the value that is in this area. Other than that, the tree is pretty much as we had intended it to be by this point. We're just kind of making our way in here to immaterial, just kind of going more defensive at this point because the damage is feeling so strong. All right, and with that being said, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the gear. So the bow is pretty strong. It's a big, flat physical damage bow, but again, Sliver Tongue worked really, really, really well all the way up through tier 15s, and it was taken down tier 15 bosses, even like +2 level from the bossing tree. They were dying very quickly, but you know, it's night and day. Like this bow did basically double or maybe even a little bit more all the damage, so that's a pretty big jump when you were already feeling strong to now feel twice as strong. And then other than that, we're kind of just going for the stuff that we planned for in the first place, right? Like flat physical damage on our jewelry, life, resistances, defensive stats, you know, more energy shield is good, enough attributes to be able to equip gear. You can get crit on your helmet, you can get crit bonus on your gloves, you can get mana leech on your gloves, which helps a lot, or on rings, that's also an option. I've got a ring here that might wind up being an option later on. This ring right here with a lot of flat physical damage and life and cold and mana leech, like, you know, maybe there's some value there, like if it's time to swap out these gloves at any point, but so far these gloves are working really well. I already mentioned Rizlotha's Coil. This is something that you can like get a lot of added damage out of. You do want to look for the largest maximum physical attack damage roll and the smallest minimum attack damage roll. You want the maximum to be as big as possible and the minimum to be as small as possible on this piece. Then, you know, move speed boots with just kind of stats for making them everything be equipable, gems be, you know, equipable, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, the quiver from campaign is still like the best one that we've seen so far in the league, and upgrading from this is gonna happen eventually, but it'll be a little expensive to do, so, you know, we'll kind of cross that bridge at some point. The same kind of goes with the amulet. Like, there are definitely some things that would be nice to replace on this amulet. The accuracy isn't doing us any favors at all. Switching to a +3 projectiles amulet is doable but expensive, you know, basically just an upgrade for a future video. You do need to have some amount of spirit in order to be able to run all 4 of the auras, the 2 heralds, wind dancer, and ghost dance, and so you can get that either on your body armor prefix, which does cut into your defenses quite a bit, or on your amulet prefix. Amulet's the better spot, but it might be a little more expensive. You're kind of gonna have to price it out yourself and see. And now let's go ahead and talk about how to craft a really strong physical damage bow for a poison Pathfinder. So we'll start by just kind of showing this off in the Craft of Exile 2 tool. This isn't quite updated for the current patch. It doesn't exactly work 100% correctly, but like we could use this as a really effective tool still to like kind of show how the process goes. So you want to start off with a Warmonger bow. That is the best base. So start with a Warmonger bow, get it at a higher item level if you can, but really what you're looking for is just a magic Warmonger bow that has at least one of these 2 mods. Percent increased physical damage, either in the like tier 2 range or the tier 1 range, 155% up to 179. And then it can have whatever other suffix, it doesn't matter, like literally just whatever other suffix is fine. So the way that we're going to craft this bow is we're going to use a greater essence of abrasion on it to guarantee that we add flat added physical damage, and then we are going to use an omen, the omen of dextral crystallization, to add another essence modifier on there. That would be the perfect essence of abrasion, and also at the same time guarantee that we remove the suffix rather than either of the 2 prefixes. So we do that, now we are left with a bow that has 3 prefixes and no suffixes, and they are pretty good. Percent increased fizz, flat increased fizz, or flat added fizz, and gain percent of damage as extra physical. All of these are great modifiers, and our prefixes are set. So now what we have to do is just desecrate the item. So we have an unveiled desecrated modifier here, and then we can just exalt it twice. And you can use higher level exalts if you want to, for like more expensive, like greater or perfect exalts if you want. That's an option. And then what you want to do is you want to use more of these perfect essences. You want to use a perfect essence of battle, and then optionally a perfect essence of haste. So perfect essence of battle has been changed from the way that it's working in Craft of Exile's tool right now. It's only +3 level of attack skills. Still a very, very strong bonus from essences. Perfect essence of haste, there's just chance to gain onslaught on killing hits. It doesn't help with damage, but it does make you clear a little faster because you'll move faster from time to time. So it's not bad, but it's not as mandatory as the +3 skills. So what you can do is just simply slap that essence on now that you have 3 suffixes. That is the key here. You have to have 3 suffixes in order to use one of these essences, because what they will do is they will have to remove a suffix modifier in order to add that essence modifier. So you're not damaging any of your prefixes. So we'll slap that on. We may get hit with an error message because of just kind of an issue with a Raycrafter. But essentially what it'll do is it'll just annul off one of these suffixes and then add on the essence modifier +3 to level of attack skills. And then, honestly, there we go. Like, the state of this bow, if this has been the one that we had crafted up earlier, we'd be insanely happy. Whatever, though, at that point you can unveil. That is a thing you can do if you're very happy with the modifiers there. If you're not totally thrilled, you could also then use a perfect essence of haste. Ideally, you would kind of use them in the opposite direction because perfect essence of battle is more expensive, but you can kind of play with this, just bounce back and forth between these two. Doesn't work perfectly in the Raycrafter, but that's okay. And so that's pretty much it for crafting the item. Ideally, what you're wanting to go for is a veiled modifier that isn't really one of these like desecrated only modifiers. You're just wanting to get like crit chance. So if we didn't have crit chance on this, like if we just had like a boring stat like dexterity, we would try to unveil crit chance when it comes to getting a good unveiled suffix, especially if you're trying to use that unveiling to fill in a modifier that you would really want and don't have on the bow, like crit chance, for example, is to use Abyssal Omens. So Omen of Abyssal Echoes will let you choose your options twice when you're unveiling them at the Desecration altar. And then if you just get unlucky, all of your desecrated modifiers are bad, Omen of Light will allow you to target, annul off those desecrated modifiers, redesecrate, and do the whole process over again. As you can imagine, this can get somewhat expensive, but is worth it to get a really good bow. And that's pretty much bow crafting. Ultimately, you just want to get those prefixes set, and then you can kind of use essences to play around with the suffixes. To some extent, if you get bad suffixes, you can use omens to like null off just suffixes and play around with them more. But usually that winds up being more expensive than just kind of starting from scratch and crafting a new bow. Alright, that's pretty much it for the build. It is insanely fun and insanely strong. We're looking forward to really pushing it to the next level with some future updates. Okay, question time. What is your favorite pizza topping? We might have asked this before, but honestly it's kind of worth asking again. There's never a bad time to talk about pizza. Okay, that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and join the Skipping Sleep Studio Discord and become part of our community. And finally, thank you to all of our channel members. If you want to support us and help us make more PoE content, consider becoming a channel member as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.